Hello, this is Mark Silverman, managing member and founder of Silverman & Associates, and I'm also a certified financial planner professional. I want to welcome you to the Saving with Silverman podcast. I'm glad you're here. Each week, we'll discuss different financial planning topics because making smarter choices about your money impacts the quality of your life.
Welcome into Saving with Silverman, everybody, because making smarter choices about your money impacts the quality of your life. We appreciate you tuning in to the radio show here today, and thank you for listening to the show each and every week. As always, joining us and serving the listening audience here in Tucson and Southern Arizona is Mr. Mark Silverman, president of Silverman & Associates. Mark, how are you, buddy?
I'm doing good, Mark. How about you? I haven't spoken to you
about a month
maybe, or so.
Yeah, 2-3 weeks. Yeah, it's the Mark and Mark show back on the air.
Not to confuse everybody.
There's a lot of Marks and a lot of Silvermans going on this show, so we appreciate your time. But Mark, the Silverman, the president here of Silverman & Associates, he's a CFP. He's a certified financial planner professional, and he is available to you anytime here in the Tucson area, Southern Arizona area, by calling or texting 520-333-7601. That is 520-333-7601. This, Mark, is your humble host today, and we certainly appreciate you being here, like I said, and we got a good show lined up for you. I think we'll just dive into the topics today, Mark, by talking about 5 dangerous mindsets. Remember that movie Dangerous Minds back in the 90s? I think Michelle Pfeiffer.
I do. I did see it. I don't remember what it was about, but yes, I do remember the movie.
She was helping kids in bad schools or something like that. But anyway, it got me thinking about that when they titled this. But 5 dangerous mindsets. Basically, if you'll explain to us how some of these mindsets can manifest themselves, with potential clients or whatever the situation is, and why they could be dangerous when it pertains to your financial plan or your retirement plan, or just making sure that you're in the right, mindset, if you will, for retirement. So, for example, complacency. How's that going to get us in trouble with our retirement planning?
Well, I think you have to be proactive, and I think a lot of people are procrastinate, whatever you want to call it, but really they aren't really doing all that they can to make sure they put themselves and their families in the best position. So, if you're working with an advisor, go out there, make sure you're meeting with your advisor on a regular basis. If you have questions and those aren't getting answered, or you want to make sure you're doing a good job, go get a second opinion, go get a third opinion. Just make sure that you're doing everything possible to either, one, make sure that you're on track for your retirement, or if you're already retired, to make sure that you're going to be able to maintain your lifestyle in retirement. And there's always room for improvement. Some people need more improvement than others, but people do become complacent and aren't proactive. And this stuff is so important. I always say, and second to your health, your wealth is probably the most important thing. And so I think it's important that you make sure that you're getting the best advice that you possibly can and doing everything that you can. So don't be complacent.
Yeah, putting our heads in the sand, right? At this point in life, we should all know that pretty much gets us nowhere. So, we can't be the old ostrich and stick our head in the sand and just hope for the best and think that it'll be okay. And so that if you do, you kind of you're asking for trouble, I guess, in that scenario. So you definitely want to make sure that you're being proactive when it comes to making sure that you're staying on top of everything. You don't have to know every nook and cranny. That's what someone like Mark Silverman is going to do for you. But you certainly want to make sure that you're not being complacent. Now, on the flip side, maybe we don't want to be too overconfident either.
Yeah, overconfidence could be a bad thing. Especially given where we are in the market. And again, I'm not here to try to scare anybody, but this is the second longest bull market that we've ever had. So with that being said, now is probably a great time to just kind of reevaluate where you are in relation to retirement, or if you're already retired, have somebody look at the risks that you're taking. How are you exposed? Because again, when the market's going up, everybody wants risk. But then again, you don't want to be caught like many people were, late 2007, 2008. The last big financial crisis. You don't want to get caught in that situation because it could be devastating if you're close to retirement or even in retirement. So you just want to make sure that you're not overconfident. You understand the risks that are involved, because again, it's all based on volatility. The more risk you take, the more return you can expect. And so you just have to make sure you're taking the right amount of risk that you're comfortable taking. And on top of that, also considering what your goals are and making sure that type of return, the risk level that you're at, is going to help you achieve those goals. Yeah,
very good point, because like anything, we can go too far in either direction, and we got to not let our emotions get the better of us. You mentioned fear in there, not trying to scare anybody, Mark, but fear is a dangerous mindset. That's what we're talking about here, is 5 dangerous mindsets of financial planning, or retirement planning, if you will, and fear is a very dangerous one also.
And people are scared. A lot of people have been burnt either with bad advisors or bad advice. Maybe they've had investments that didn't they weren't what they thought they had, or they got burnt. Like I just mentioned in the financial crisis, and some people have still not gotten back into the market. But so you do need to understand. I mean, you don't want to be fearful, but you want to recognize, again, where you are in relation to your goals, what your goals even are. A lot of people don't even have set out goals as far as they haven't really spelled those out correctly or in a plan. And just making sure that you're doing everything that you can, but you don't want to be fearful. You want to be confident in knowing that what's your time horizon. If you have a shorter time horizon, maybe you can't take as much risk. But if you have a longer time horizon, so what if the market corrects next year? If you have 20 years to go or 10 years out from retirement, that's not as big of a deal because you're looking from point A to point B. So it's really reevaluating everything and not living with fear, because as you know, Mark, living with fear is not any way to live. You want to enjoy life.
No, definitely. You don't want to let any of these things be too heavy. Just like you don't want to be overly weighted in one particular financial product, right? You don't want to have all your money. You want to be 100% in the stock market, because if it does take a downturn, well, then you're going to be in pretty bad shape.
Yeah.
So you want to make sure that with these mindsets, that you're also keeping yourself fairly grounded or fairly in the middle, right? What is the old saying? If you run too far on the left side of the road and you go in the ditch, that's no good. So you can't overcorrect and go back too far to the right side and run into that ditch. You want to stay in the middle of the road, if you will. You're listening to Saving with Silverman with Mark Silverman of Silverman and Associates. Mark's the president, and CFP, that's a certified financial professional, planner professional. And you can reach Mark by calling or texting 520-333-7601. That's 520-333-7601. A couple quick more here, Mark, for our 5 dangerous mindsets. Cynicism, maybe being just a bit too critical, maybe.
Well, you want to be a little bit critical, but you also you got to trust the process. And that's why, what we do is so important as far as, really dealing with, behavioral finance, if you will. There's been lots of studies. In fact, there was one done recently, and basically you look at what the market returns have been versus the average investor and what type of returns they've gotten. And in every category, basically, it's a lot lower. Why? Because, people become cynics, or they, overreact and, try to time the market and do all these things that they know they shouldn't be doing. But again, human nature is human nature. And so that's what we're fighting against. But that's why it's important that you have an advisor that can guide you through. And if you are having questions or concerns and those sorts of things, that they could sit down with you, reevaluate your goals, making sure that you're on track, and kind of, talk you off the ledge, if you will, in those sorts of situations.
Yeah, and I'm gonna change this last one here, Mark. I agree with you, because I think it's fairly similar to it with despair. Despair was going to be what the topic was from the producers, but I want to ask you, what do you think another dangerous mindset might be that just gets folks into trouble?
I think I would have to say a lot of people become their own obstacle. I mean, I have a saying, there are plenty of difficult obstacles in your path. Don't allow yourself to become one of them. Some people, they're their own worst enemy.
Yeah.
And so,
procrastination.
That's, again, you want to make sure that you're working with a professional that knows what they're doing, that's looking out for your best interest. And so I would say, find somebody that can help you, that's willing to take the time to listen and understand your goals, rather than trying to sell you, investment or insurance products. And making sure they're going to take the time to build you a comprehensive plan that's going to state out your goals and objectives and keep track, and making sure that you're going to be able to achieve, what you're setting out to achieve. And every plan's different. Every client's different. So it's not a cookie cutter approach. So it's important that you understand those sorts of things and really kind of protect yourself from yourself.
Yeah, we'll call
rather than the markets.
We'll call it procrastination. I think that's probably a good one. Because,
and a lot of people do procrastinate.
Yeah.
I can't tell you how many people have called me or met with me from the radio show and tell me, I heard you years ago. I wish I would have called you sooner.
Right.
You can't beat yourself up for what you could have, would have, should have done. We can only move forward from where we are today.
Well, if you find yourself procrastinating or have been one of those people and you've listened to the show before, or maybe this is just your first time, go ahead and call or text Mark. And what's that going to look like for those folks, Mark?
Sure, Mark. So again, as I just mentioned, whether you're a first-time listener to the show or you've heard me for a long time, if anything I've said really makes sense or resonates with you, this is now your opportunity to come in and have a conversation with me in my office to go through this process that we call the financial physical. And I can assure you, I will not be trying to sell you investment or insurance products. I repeat, this is not a sales meeting. Rather, we're going to discuss your values and goals in a way, honestly, you probably never have. This consultation is designed for both individuals as well as couples. However, if you are married, it is mandatory that both spouses attend this initial meeting. So whether you're still working or already retired, this is a great opportunity to see what it looks like to work with someone who's actually required to have a fiduciary responsibility to look out for your best interests at all times. And as part of the financial physical, we will discuss your cash reserves, debt if you have any, insurance, all the different types, and how to best allocate your assets. And we'll even benchmark where you are now financially compared to where you want to be, so you have an even better perspective of what's required to achieve your goals for the reasons that are important to you. And this will become the foundation for developing a plan that gives you the highest probability of making that happen. This meeting will be valuable to you whether or not we decide to work together. There is no cost or obligation for this initial appointment. However, it is best suited for people who have saved at least $250,000. And as you probably are aware, I am a certified financial planner professional, and I believe the only local one that's on the radio here in Tucson. And the going hourly rate to meet with a CFP such as myself can cost as much as $300 an hour. So this is a tremendous value and chance to finally get your financial house in order and keep it that way. And your only commitment is an hour or so of your time. We do try our best to help everyone. However, our slots do fill up quickly. So I can only guarantee a complimentary meeting to the next 10 people that contact us right now. Please don't procrastinate, because making smarter choices about your money impacts the quality of your life.
Great advice from Mark Silverman. So let's go ahead and take that action right now. Don't procrastinate. Pick up the cell phone, because it's probably nearby you anyway, and give him a call or a text, whichever one's more convenient and comfortable for you. 520-333-7601. Again, 520-333-7601. It's a great opportunity from Mark Silverman to just find out where we stand and get ourselves on the right road, the right path. And you just have to take a little action. 520-333-7601. 520-333-7601. You are listening to Saving with Silverman. We'll be right back.
If you've ever asked yourself what a well-balanced financial portfolio looks like, keep listening to Saving with Silverman, and you'll find out.
You're back here with us on Saving with Silverman. You're listening to the show. We certainly appreciate it. Mark Killian here alongside Mark Silverman, the president of Silverman & Associates. You can reach out to Mark by calling or texting 520-333-7601, 520-333-7601 right here in Tucson or the southern Arizona area. Just give Mark a call or a text, 520-333-7601. All right, Mark, so let's talk about the informed consumer. I think everybody, and no matter what you're shopping for, wants to feel informed about their options. And certainly when it comes to financial decisions, people definitely want to be informed, or at least they should be. So let's discuss the ways that people can inform themselves. For example, a lot of people like to get financial news and information from a variety of resources, really, like TV shows, magazines, newsletters, just online in general. Who or what are the primary voices in media that you find a lot of clients or potential clients might be listening to?
I think people get information from all over the place. I mean, I'd probably say the number one thing is probably the internet, I would have to say. I mean, they obviously, if you're listening to this show, you listen to, radio shows, financial radio shows, and there's certainly a lot of them out there here in Tucson. And but you might be, if you're watching CNBC or just going online to different websites, Yahoo, there's lots of different financial websites that are out there. There's magazines, of course, newsletters. We have a weekly newsletter we send out that has articles and that sort of thing. So if you're interested in that, you can go to the website and sign up for that as well. That's savingwithsilverman.com. But I think people kind of get information from different places. I know a lot of the people listen to the radio, or some of them are big fans of Dave Ramsey. We get quite a few people that listen to Dave Ramsey or follow his philosophy or attended his conferences, that sort of thing.
Okay. Well, you mentioned the internet. Obviously, that's a big resource. I think people sometimes do our seniors a disservice by thinking that they're not using all the technology available to them. And I think that's definitely wrong. I think seniors, I know my mom, she definitely uses a lot of things, social media wise, internet based, whatever, looking around for different things. So what do you see are some maybe pros and cons? We'll stick with the internet, for example, when you're doing some financial research. What could be some pros and cons?
I think the pros are there's a lot of information out there, so there's plenty of information to find. I think the con is you have to understand, what's the angle of the person that's writing the article. There are people, as I've said before, that are simply just insurance licensed. They're selling life insurance and annuities. And certainly if you listen to other radio shows on this station, you can tell those people are just simply selling products or selling annuities. So they're going to probably bash the market and, stock market's bad, this and that. And on the other hand, you have people that don't do any of that sort of thing. And maybe they have the brokerage mentality, and there's shows that focus on that, where they're bashing annuities or bashing, insurance or whatever it might be, because they're trying to push their mutual funds or whatever it might be. So I think it's important that you understand what their angle is, and I, in full disclosure, I'm securities and insurance licensed, so we work with everything. And I'm also CFP, so we really do lead with planning. And so it's important that we're objective when we work with our clients and making sure we're explaining all the different options and giving them the advice that's truly in their best interests. But to get back to your point, Mark, I think you really do need to understand the differences of who's writing the article and what they actually do to write it. I'm a contributor to Investopedia, and I'll answer questions on there, and I've done quite a bit with them, especially recently. So you want to consider the source of where it's coming from. And, it's important to do your homework, obviously. So you want to make sure you do your homework and understand the person that's telling you something, because you could read two different articles and hear two different opposite stories. So again, you want to make sure that the information is reliable and factual.
Yeah, and then in the internet or the media-driven world of today, you look no further than what's going on all the time to wonder whether or not what you're getting is the straight skinny, right?
Yeah, you can meet with 10 different advisors. They're all going to give you 10 different opinions.
Right.
But at the end of the day, you got to do what makes sense for you, and you've got to make sure that you have that you guys kind of see eye to eye and you're on the same page. And if there's not that comfort level, or there's no trust, then it's probably not going to be a beneficial relationship for you.
Okay, so it's a great resource to go get started, to do some research, to kind of get your ideas together, maybe think about some questions. Same kind of thing we try to do here on the show, and this obviously is the radio medium, but try to give you some things to think about, questions to ask. Now, would you say when you're doing your research or trying to make a financial decision, is it possible to do too much of that, to maybe overload yourself?
Certainly. And we're not giving recommendations on here, and I want to make that clear. Exactly. We're giving some, general topics that we discuss. We're not making investment recommendations. And I do say that because I've heard some of the other shows here in Tucson, some of the other financial shows, and I've actually heard them pitching product, which is, horrible to even think that somebody's going to make a recommendation without even knowing who they're speaking to. But I have heard that, which is horrific. But I think it's important that you do your homework. So the term, of course, which I didn't create, is paralysis by analysis. So there's people that have done so much homework, went with so many different people, and end up never doing anything. And that doesn't really benefit them as well. You've got to find somebody that you trust, and until you find that trust, you got to keep meeting with people. But eventually, you really do need to make a decision. It's like I'll relate it to buying a computer. If you keep waiting till computers get cheaper, you'll never buy a computer, because computers continuously get cheaper. The technology gets better, and the prices keep going down.
Yeah.
So, but eventually, you need to do something.
Yeah, consumer electronics are always going to be going downward. So yeah, that's a good way to looking at it. Yeah. You said that, it made me think about my wife, for example. She'll sit on Amazon sometimes and just looking, and then I'll be like, "What'd you get off Amazon?" Nothing. I just looked for too long, and now I can't make a decision. So
and there's a point where do you really need it? That's a different decision. But if you're just sitting in cash, or you're sitting in the stock market and you don't really know what you're doing, or you haven't analyzed it, you need to do something, or you need to have somebody look at it and making sure what you're doing is appropriate.
Exactly. Yeah. And because you can investigate yourself right out of making any kind of decision.
You can always argue either way why you haven't done anything.
Yeah, very true. Well, you're listening to Saving with Silverman, and if you'd like to call or text Mark, you can do so by dialing 520-333-7601. That is 520-333-7601. We're talking about informed customers or consumers nowadays. A lot of information, a lot of places to get your information or to get your knowledge base started. There's radio, TV, magazines, obviously online being a huge way it's changed our life in general. What is a way, Mark, that you've seen someone who's been influenced, we'll say, by their own research, and it actually harmed them? I guess basically kind of what we were just talking about. Maybe they've done so much of that analysis or something of that along that line that they've actually gotten themselves into a bit of trouble.
I've seen it a couple different ways. One is they've gotten so much research and they've gotten so many articles that contradict each other that they end up not doing anything. Or they act on some advice that their friend told them because their friend who was investing gave them a hot stock tip or told them to buy this or buy that, when, again, everybody's situation is different. Just because I have one client and I make a recommendation that this is in their best interest doesn't mean that their friend who might be in a different situation should buy the same thing. So again, it's really working with someone that's going to take the time to listen, that's not there to just try to sell you something, that's going to take the time to listen, understand your situation, understand, your values, goals, what's important to you, what you're trying to achieve, and then laying out a strategic, comprehensive plan of how to get there, what's even achievable. Because quite honestly, sometimes things aren't achievable, but you need to know that. So the first step we want to do is making sure that we've done our homework and understanding what people have done. So many people have come into the office where, they've invested and they've maybe changed advisors and, they're in some mutual funds. They meet with another advisor that says those mutual funds are bad. Let's buy these mutual funds. And I can tell you that process, it doesn't benefit the clients. People don't want the same thing anymore. They want somebody that's going to really look at everything, all the different pieces of the puzzle. Look at the estate plan, look at the insurance, look at tax planning. Of course, looking at the investments, looking at the risk, looking at their goals, retirement, income, all these different pieces, and putting together a plan that's comprehensive that looks at all these pieces together to give them the right advice of what, when should they take Social Security. There's lots of different things that we do. It's not just investment management. And so many people are working with advisors who strictly are just focused on either the insurance or investment management portion, and that it's really a disservice to people.
Well, you can clearly hear that Mark is very passionate about what he's talking about here, and really it comes down to making sure that fit is right. So, Mark, if people are out there listening and they're like, hey, I'm fairly informed, or I want to know more, and especially want to know more about you, and they want to go ahead and give that a call into the number, what's that going to look like?
Sure. And, you probably just heard me say, we take a different approach. And is this approach a good fit for you, or does it make sense for you? We think so, but I'm not a fit for everybody. There's personalities and that sort of thing. So, but in order to do that, we have to sit down with you. So this is now another opportunity to come in and sit down with me. So just like you get a second opinion on your health, why wouldn't you get a second opinion on your wealth? So whether you're a do-it-yourselfer or already working with someone, this is now your chance to go through this process that we call the financial physical. Do you know what your investments are costing you? Even if you're doing it yourself, you are paying fees. Some people don't realize that. If you're still working, are you on track to have the type of retirement you've always envisioned? Or if you're already retired, do you know if you or your spouse are at risk of running out of money while trying to maintain your current lifestyle? I can assure you I will not be trying to sell you investment or insurance products. And I repeat, this is not a sales meeting. In this initial meeting, we'll address issues of importance to you, provide an overall view of your situation, and give you some general advice on what needs to be completed. This consultation is designed for both individuals as well as couples. However, if you are married, it is mandatory that both spouses attend this initial meeting. So whether you're still working or already retired, this is a great opportunity to see what it looks like to work with someone who's actually required to have a fiduciary responsibility to look out for your best interest at all times. This meeting will be valuable to you whether or not we decide to work together. There is no cost or obligation for this initial appointment. However, it is best suited for people who have saved at least $250,000. And as you probably are aware by now, I am a certified financial planner professional and the only one locally on the radio here in Tucson. And the going hourly rate to meet with a CFP such as myself can cost as much as $300 an hour. So this is a tremendous value and chance to finally get your financial house in order and keep it that way. And your only commitment is an hour or so of your time. Just as you want to reach a healthy life from a physical standpoint, you also want to reach and maintain great financial health. So our financial physical is just what the doctor ordered. We do try our best to help everyone, however, our slots do fill up quickly. So I can only guarantee a complimentary meeting to the next 7 people that contact us right now. Please don't procrastinate because making smarter choices about your money impacts the quality of your life.
Here's your number to call or text 520-333-7601. That is 520-333-7601. It's a great opportunity to make sure you're on the right road for retirement and get started today by just taking a little bit of action and reaching out to Mark. Call or text 520-333-7601. Great chance to come in, sit down, have that conversation with Mark Silverman, as he said, and make sure that you're headed in that right financial direction and really just get the information and find out if it's a good fit for all. 520-333-7601. You're listening to Saving with Silverman. We'll be right back.
Learn the path to a worry-free retirement. Keep listening to Saving with Silverman.
We're moving along nicely today here on Saving with Silverman. We certainly appreciate your time listening to the show each and every week. Mark Killian, your host, alongside Mark Silverman of Silverman and Associates. Mark's a CFP, a certified financial planner professional, and available here to you anytime in the southern Arizona, Tucson area by calling or texting 520-333-7601. Mark, you mentioned in the last segment we talked about the informed consumer, and you even touched on DIY, and you could still be paying. You're still paying for things even if you're a do-it-yourselfer. And it got me to thinking. So let's talk about do-it-yourselfers when it pertains to retirement planning here on this section of the show. I don't know that we do that a lot, so let's just kind of touch on some of those things that you were kind of alluding to before. Like anything, a lot of our areas of our culture, the do-it-yourself approach is pretty popular, right? I mean, you see it there's a whole network for it. There's
Sure.
the DIY network.
There's, do you need to go to a doctor anymore? There's WebMD. You can kind of diagnose yourself.
Yeah, exactly.
I don't encourage that, but
Right, exactly. So we do have this kind of culture going on, whether it's, home renovation, landscaping, interior design, medical, like you were just saying, whatever the case is, and also professional help when it comes to, retirement planning. So let's talk about a few of the things that go on maybe mentally, like some of the mentality that goes behind this. First of all, I guess since you mentioned, fees and things, when you come across somebody who doesn't have a financial advisor, what do you find that the reasons are for doing that? Is it usually they think the fees are better?
Well, I think that's part of it. I think the fees is obviously there's a cost issue. Obviously, if you hire an advisor, nobody works for free, and there's different ways to pay advisors. There's commissions, there's fees, that sort of thing. But as I tell people, it's not what you pay, it's what you get, as long as you're getting value. But if you don't know what you're paying, it's hard to kind of determine what the value that you're getting. And, people that know me well, certainly my wife will attest to, I live by the mantra, do what you do best and hire the rest. So with that being said, I still find it much cheaper to, whatever it might be, to hire somebody to do the job correctly than for me to try to learn and try to figure it out myself, which I'll end up probably screwing it up and have to still hire somebody to now fix my mistake and still fix the original problem. So, with that being said, I think it makes sense to outsource this sort of thing because and I've said this before, true wealth is discretionary time. So what I mean by that is everybody has the same amount of time. And so, but you're not limited on how much money you can make, realistically, if you think about it. But there's no limit. You could earn as much money as you put forth as far as the work that you're doing, depending on what type of work you do. But true wealth, again, is discretionary time. So if we could free up your time so you're not managing your accounts or worrying about this, and you have somebody that you're outsourcing it to, overall, you're going to probably have a better experience, probably have a better job done for you, and not have to worry and stress about, are you managing this yourself and looking at it, whether you have the time or not have the time. The question becomes, do you want to spend the time to learn everything that you have to learn in order to do the best job you can possible? And when it comes down to it, a lot of people that are managing it themselves aren't looking at it every day, aren't spending the time. So they're really doing a disservice, not just to them, but their families.
Okay, so some good points to think about here as we're talking about do-it-yourselfers when it comes to retirement planning. I definitely agree with you, Mark. My dad used to say the same thing, do what you do best, hire the rest. And also agree with you about messing something up. I tried to put in some French doors and, make a hole in the wall and all that kind of stuff and just made a bigger mess out of it. So it's definitely not my forte. And there are a lot of people out there who want to try doing it themselves in a lot of aspects of life. But as we're talking about financial planning here, you can certainly, maybe you do a good job, but you can also certainly make some mistakes or do some things that cause you to think, well, I really need to get some advice on this. So if someone's doing that and managing their money themselves and so on and so forth, are there some triggers that you see when they do come in to see you that they kind of say these one or two topics are the reason why I found myself at your door?
Maybe they have a spouse that's been nagging them to do something better than what they might be doing, or just checking into it.
Okay.
Maybe they're coming into some money, maybe an inheritance, or they sold a business, or they're getting close to retirement. People turn 50, they decide now's the time they need to start thinking about retirement instead of thinking about it, when they're in their 20s and 30s. And so, I think those kind of things can prompt people to call or come into the office. But again, you have to look at the net result. What type of value is your advisor adding to your relationship? After the fees that you paid your advisor are paid, are you in better situation than you would be doing it yourself? And, paying maybe lower fees, maybe you're paying higher fees depending on what you're invested in. So you've got to look at those sorts of things and figure out what puts you in a better position. The other thing is the behavioral finance, which we talked about earlier, Mark, is having somebody that you could rely on, that you can call, that's going to keep you on track for your goals, that's not going to allow you to just jump in and out of the market, which people do a lot of when they don't have an advisor, when they're doing it themselves. Making emotional based decisions of, getting out at the wrong time and getting in at the wrong time, that sort of thing, and keep you invested, which ultimately we all know is going to make you the most successful that way.
Well, you're listening to Saving with Silverman. Mark Silverman is here with us. He is a CFP, Certified Financial Planner Professional, and available to you by calling or texting 520-333-7601. We're discussing DIYers, if you will, do-it-yourselfers, when it comes to financial planning and retirement planning. And again, if you'd like to talk with a professional, a Certified Financial Planner Professional, Mark Silverman is that, and you can call him 520-333-7601, or you can text that number as well. Mark, do you have an example for us maybe of a time when you've encountered a DIYer that come in and you were able to sit down and talk with them and go through your process and show them a flaw in their thinking that's really helped them avoid further mistakes or potential mistakes?
Sure. I mean, we just took on a couple recently where they were doing it themselves. And they literally, and this happens a lot, it seems like, have stuff everywhere. I mean, they're not even just working with one firm, but they've got stuff at this mutual fund company, this credit union, this bank. They've got money here, there. They've never really looked at everything together. And that's one of the things that we do, is really put all the pieces of the puzzle together so they can get a clear picture of everything that they have. Because a lot of people don't. They have statements, some statements they get monthly, some are quarterly, some are annually, and they've never really put it all together, which I can tell you, as you get older, simplicity is a good thing, not just for you, but for your kids or whoever your beneficiaries are going to be, making their life easier after your time passes. So we really try to help through that process and really looking at everything. And it's hard to do if you bought something from somebody over there and then you own this and you rolled this over. Again, you want to have somebody that's willing to put the time in to look at all the different pieces of the puzzle, not just, looking at just the insurance or just looking at the investments. I don't do that part. I don't do that part. You want somebody that can work with all these different things and put it all together for you. So in this case, we were able to do that. Actually, we're in the process right now of putting it all together for them, and we're meeting with them next week to kind of go over that.
Well, what are some of the most common retirement planning mistakes that people tend to make when they are trying to handle this all themselves? I know you've kind of, you mentioned a few things, but are there one or two that are more prevalent than others?
Again, not focusing on goals and more focusing on, their statements. They see their statement and maybe they've lost money or they made money, and then they make a decision based on that rather than focusing on their goals and where they are, what type of returns they need to achieve those goals. What I probably should do right now, Mark, is offer that the white paper that I wrote. So,
okay, yeah.
The top 10 mistakes people make in retirement. This is something that I wrote, that mistakes I've seen over the last 20 plus years of people doing. And I wrote it in hopes of hoping that people don't continue to make these mistakes, which unfortunately people will. But I will share that white paper with anybody if they want to, call us or text us, and I'll have you give the number out. But all we need is your full name as well as your email address, and we'll be happy to email that over to you. No cost, no obligation. Doesn't mean you have to be a client or anything like that. We'll be happy to share that with you.
Okay, and if you'd like to get that free white paper, and again, it was called?
The top 10 mistakes people make in retirement.
The top 10 mistakes people make in retirement. If you'd like to get that complimentary from Mark Silverman, just call or text 520-333-7601. That is 520-333-7601. As Mark said, he just basically needs your email and your name, and he'll get that out to you. So call or text 520-333-7601. And you could also stop by the website. You could probably send them an email that way if you'd like, and that is savingwithsilverman.com. And if you are a DIYer, you're a do-it-yourselfer, and you do think maybe you need to sit down with a professional and get some advice and find out if you make some changes or if you're doing well. Either way, find out what's going on. Mark, it's a great time for you to go ahead and let the listeners know how to do that.
Yep, let's do that. So again, whether you're a first-time listener of the show or you've heard me for a long time and you've just procrastinated or whatever it might be, if anything I've said makes sense or resonates with you, this is now your opportunity to come in and have a conversation with me here in my office to go through this process we call the financial physical. And the meeting is actually with me. I don't pawn you off on somebody else like maybe some of the other shows may do. And I can assure you, I will not be trying to sell you investment or insurance products. I repeat, this is not a sales meeting, which is also going to be different than a lot of the other shows on the radio as well. Rather, we're going to discuss your values and goals in a way, honestly, you probably never have. This consultation is designed for both individuals as well as couples. However, if you are married, it is mandatory that both spouses attend this initial meeting. So whether you're still working or already retired, this is a great opportunity to see what it looks like to work with someone who's actually required to have a fiduciary responsibility to look out for your best interest at all times. And as part of the financial physical, we will discuss your cash reserves, debt if you have any, insurance, all different types, and how to best allocate your assets. And we'll even benchmark where you are now financially compared to where you want to be, so you have an even better perspective of what's required to achieve your goals for the reasons that are important to you. And this will become the foundation for developing a plan that gives you the highest probability of making that happen. This meeting will be valuable to you whether or not we decide to work together. There is no cost or obligation for this initial appointment. However, it is best suited for people who have saved at least $250,000. And as you probably are aware by now, I am a certified financial planner professional. I believe the only one locally here on the radio in Tucson. And the going hourly rate to meet with a CFP such as myself can cost as much as $300 an hour. So this is a tremendous value and chance to finally get your financial house in order and keep it that way. And your only commitment is an hour or so of your time. We do try our best to help everyone. However, our slots do fill up quickly. So I can only guarantee a complimentary meeting to the next 5 people that contact us right now. Please don't procrastinate, because making smarter choices about your money impacts the quality of your life.
All right, great offer from Mark Silverman. Go ahead and be one of the next 5 to call or text 520-333-7601. Not only can you secure one of the slots to come in for a consultation, but you can also go ahead and get that white paper that Mark discussed as well. He'll email that out to you. You just have to contact him and get him your name and your email address, and he'll send you that white paper as well. 520-333-7601 to talk with Mark Silverman of Silverman and Associates. Again, the number is 520-333-7601 to come in and sit down and have that consultation and that conversation with Mark Silverman, the president of Silverman and Associates. Stick around. There is much more show to come. Right after this, we'll be back with the mailbag, I do believe, on the other side here on Saving with Silverman.
You've got questions. We've got answers. Keep listening to Saving with Silverman.
Well, we're cruising down the home stretch here today on Saving with Silverman. Thank you so much for staying tuned in to the show today. If you'd like to reach out to Mr. Mark Silverman, you can do so by calling or texting 520-333-7601. That is 520-333-7601. Mark is right here in Tucson. He serves the Tucson, Southern Arizona area. He's the president of Silverman and Associates. He's a certified financial planner professional. Been doing this for many, many years, and certainly able to give you a hand if you'd like to reach out to him and talk about your financial situation, your retirement situation. Give him a jingle, 520-333-7601. Mark, let's dive into the mailbag and take questions from around the area as we always do.
Let's do it.
All right. So our first one is from Diane, and Diane is in Marana. And Diane says, I recently got a very large cash settlement from an auto accident I was involved in. and this is going to make a big difference in my life. I am 57 and don't have a whole lot saved for retirement. The problem is that because I've done such little investing over the years, I really have no idea where to start with this investment money or this settlement money. What's your thoughts there, Mark? A first step for her, maybe?
Well, Diane, thanks for the question. Again, hopefully you didn't get too hurt. And I happy you got a settlement, but hopefully, again, you weren't injured too bad. But the first step is really you want to start interviewing advisors, in my opinion. I would look for a CFP, Certified Financial Planner. You can go to the CFP board website. I'm a little biased, but I think if you're going to hire somebody, why not hire the best? And in this industry, the best designation that's out there is somebody that's a CFP because they've been vetted and background and training experience, that sort of thing. So I would look for CFPs and maybe interview a few of them and see which one's a good fit. We're certainly happy to be part of that mix. If that works for you, you can certainly give us a call. But that's really the first step. And then you really, I don't know if you're still working or not working, but this could be a kind of jump start for your retirement, depending on what you're looking at doing or when you're retiring, or if you are retiring, because some people quite honestly never want to retire. They want to keep doing what they're doing, which there's certainly nothing wrong with that. But I would start interviewing advisors and doing your homework and that sort of thing, and find somebody that you feel comfortable with, that you trust, and get that process started. But like I said, if we can be of any help, we're certainly happy to have a conversation with you as well.
Well, thank you, Diane, for the question. And again, hopefully that you were not injured too badly or anybody else. Good advice there from Mark. And I imagine that, Mark, she's probably, if she hasn't gotten a lot saved, as she's mentioned in there, she definitely is going to have a lot of questions across the board. She probably hasn't thought about a Social Security strategy or any of those kinds of things. If she's still a few years away from Social Security, but all of those play together as we try to talk about here a lot on the show. And so sitting down with someone, as Mark said, look up a CFP, a Certified Financial Planner professional, and get some advice. And of course, if you'd like to get that from Mark, well, you've already taken the first step by shooting the email. So go ahead and give him a call, 520-333-7601. For Diane or anybody else in a similar situation, or just anyone that would like to talk with Mark about retirement planning, 520-333-7601. Call or text. Okay, Paul from Tucson. Paul says, hey, Mark, I guess I should have known better, but that's always a good way to start. But for some reason, I was under the impression that I wouldn't have to pay taxes on my Social Security benefits. Well, now I know better, but it seems like some people pay more than others. Can you enlighten me on how this works?
Well, Paul, thanks for the question. Yeah, a lot of people don't realize that, and there's more to it than just take it or leave it. We have software that we use because, most people are eligible at 62 if they take it early, or they can take it at full retirement age, 66 to 67, or, maximizing it at 70. And as I said before, if the longer you wait, the more you get. And there's an 8%, it grows at 8% compounded each year. Up until age 70. So there is a huge benefit of taking it then, which most people aren't aware of. And the only place you get 8% guaranteed these days is through the government. But yeah, as far as Social Security, if you're taking it and you have other income, if you're married, filing jointly, if you make modified adjusted gross income is over $32,000 a year, which is not a huge number, 50% of your Social Security is taxable. If you make more than $44,000 modified adjusted gross income, 85% of your Social Security is taxable. If you're single, the number is lower. 50% of your income will be taxable if your modified adjusted gross income is $25,000. And then if you're single, if your modified adjusted gross income is over $34,000, then 85% of your Social Security will be taxable. So for most people, Social Security is taxable up to 50 to up to 85% of it. So that's part of the strategy. So that's why it's so important when you make these decisions that you have somebody that's looking at all the other things, looking at your investments, if you have rental properties, looking at all these different things, if you're still going to be working part-time, whatever it might be, is if you have a spouse that's going to be working, looking at all these different things to really help you make the right decision and consider these things. Because, I do see a lot of people that come to us who've already turned Social Security on, and they didn't realize Social Security is going to be taxable. And so they're, paying taxes on the Social Security and didn't realize that they could have gotten more. And so maybe it doesn't make sense to take it right away, or maybe it makes sense to delay it, especially considering the tax situation. So great question, but we do come across that, unfortunately, quite a bit.
Yeah, I was going to say, don't beat yourself up too much, Paul. I'm sure you're not the only one.
No, not at all.
Who's thought that. So again, great question. And if you'd like to get more in depth with Mark and talk about the different options and things to work through, you know what to do. Call or text him, 520-333-7601, 520-333-7601. Thanks so much, Paul. We appreciate it. Our final question today from Miss Rebecca in Sahuarita. And Rebecca says, Mark, unless something goes horribly wrong, I should be getting a sizable inheritance from my mom. She's currently 90 years old and in declining health. Is it unwise for me to factor that inheritance into my retirement planning?
Well, Rebecca, that's a great question. When we do our planning, we do want to know about inheritances. But the problem really is, as you probably understand, people are living longer. We don't really know, even if your mother has declining health, whether that's 1 year, 2 years, 3 years, 4 years, 5 years, 10 years, we can't really plan on that. If you're planning on retiring on a certain year, we can't really rely on that money to be there for your retirement. So it's important that we do understand that and do some planning and discussions there. But it's really hard to count on it coming in a certain year until the money's been received, because sometimes even after somebody passes away, depending on how the estate plan was set up, it could take months to years to get that money fully. And if you're relying on that, don't have any other income sources, it could be a big problem. So it's important that we do understand it. But again, as you might well understand, it's hard to really put a date on it and a time frame on it when somebody's still alive. So great question.
Yeah, a lot of good questions this week, Mark, really, and some interesting ones. I think we've had some pretty diverse sections. Sometimes we get a pretty wide range of questions from people, and sometimes they tend to follow a similar pattern. But I think it all comes back to the same thing, that people are out there, they have questions, they need help, or they want to get some answers, and they want to find out if they're doing the right things or if they're not, what they should be doing. And that's a lot of what comes into play when they come in and sit down and talk with you. So tell us what that's going to look like for anybody else out there today who finds himself in that situation that wants to reach out to you.
Sure, Mark. So here, I'm going to pose a question. And so here's a simple question, and can you answer it honestly and objectively as possible? Aside from the happy hellos and how's the family, and aside from the occasional lunch or golf game, I get it. I'm as much friends with so many of my clients. They really become true friends over the many years. But I think the question has to be asked, especially in light of the stakes. Is your current financial advisor truly adding value beyond a doubt? Is your current financial advisor truly adding value? It's a valid question, as a friendship or just relationship allows you not to be in a position to ask those critical questions. Are you talking about taxes? Are you talking about Social Security and income and diversification and insurance and estate planning and healthcare? Are you having those annual reviews? But hopefully it's more frequently than that. Is there detailed follow-up? Is there accountability? If you are, if all that is happening, congratulations, because you've got a great relationship, and send your financial advisor a thank you. But if you're not having that, if you're not feeling the value, if you're not having these in-depth conversations, then you owe it to yourself and really to your family to have a conversation with someone else, because if you don't, you're the one that's going to suffer. You're the one that's going to have to pay the cost, and it'll cost you in more ways than you'll ever know. Let us prove to you how we can help your money go further in retirement. Let us show you with our financial physical. I believe you'll be shocked at what you'll learn, and this won't cost you anything. Give us a call at 520-333-7601. That's 520-333-7601, 520-333-7601.
Really great question from Mark Silverman there to ponder and think about. As we wrap up the show this week, ask yourself that, and then go ahead and reach out and get that information. Get started. Go ahead and take a chance and don't procrastinate. Just reach out, sit down, have a conversation with Mark, and really see where you stand. It's not going to cost you anything but a little bit of your time, and that's certainly something that we can all afford to spend a little bit of after so long of working. We want to make sure that we're doing the right thing. So reach out to Mark Silverman at Silverman & Associates by calling or texting him 520-333-7601. Retirees, pre-retirees, it's a great chance, a great offer from Mark Silverman. So call 520-333-7601. Mark is a certified financial planner professional here in Tucson and serving the surrounding southern Arizona areas. And you can reach out to him anytime, call or text 520-333-7601. That's 520-333-7601. Mark, thanks for being on the show as always. We certainly appreciate your time. You know that, and your wisdom.
Well, Mark, I want to thank everybody for taking the time to listen. I hope you got some value from the show.
So make sure you tune in for more Mark Silverman right here each and every week on Saving with Silverman. Bye-bye.
Silverman & Associates Wealth Management, LLC is a registered investment advisor. Information presented is for educational purposes only and does not intend to make an offer or solicitation for the sale or purchase of any specific securities, product, service, or investment strategy. Investments involve risk and, unless otherwise stated, are not guaranteed. Be sure to first consult with a qualified advisor, tax professional, or attorney before implementing any strategy or recommendation discussed herein.